What's going on? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and up next we are going to go over the top 10 surprising sales I saw last week. Stay tuned. Alright, so before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. If you haven't watched one of my videos, these top 10 videos before, what I do is I watch the weekly Heritage comic auction. I usually follow around 200 books per week across all ages, all genres, and I pick the top 5 most surprising sales on the high end and the top 5 most surprising sales on the low end. So that's something a little different that I do with this video, so you can kind of see some of those books that are maybe trending down or just people got great deals on, as well as those record-breaking big high sales. So with that, let's get into these sales. And if you're a regular viewer of the channel, see I got a new Jackson Hole shirt, just got back recently. One of my favorite places on the planet, so finally got some new clothing from there, so I'm not always wearing the same shirt. But all right, let's get into these top sales. We've got number 10. This is a low sale. This was Submariner number 1 with a CGC 4.5 that sold for just $360. Now, this is the first solo series from the Silver Age for Submariner, and this is one of those books that over the last year has been just on fire, has been going up and up and up, especially with the expectation that we're going to see that character in the next Wakanda or Black Panther movie. And so it's surprising when you see these books start to trend back down, because we've been getting even some more recent rumors that Submariner seems more and more likely. So I had estimated the price of this book at $450. This was 20% below that estimate. It had peaked back in May at $800. Now that was a big outlier sale. There weren't really any other sales around that one. It was just one of those, kind of May crazy sales from last year. But this is 55% below that peak sale. The other sales had been more in the range of $600 when it had been topping out. So still quite a bit down from those higher sales. Now, regardless, this is a book that has been retreating, and given the rumors, the expectation that we're going to see this character in the next Black Panther movie, and if we do, I don't think it's going to be a one-time deal. I think we're going to see that character continuously for quite a while. I think they're going to integrate him into the major storyline. So I would think this is a pretty good book to pick up those Submariner keys if they're at a discount right now. Now, I wouldn't really go for an alternative for this. This is already the alternative for his first Silver Age appearance in FF4 and his second Silver Age appearance in Fantastic Four 6. You could go for Iron Man and Submariner number 1. That book did come out before this one, but it's less popular. It's not part of that main continuous run of books. It tends to sell for about half the price of this one, and there was a recent sale in February of $192 for a 4.5, so that trends with this $360 sale. So that is a more affordable option. It will likely move up in price if the other books do as well. So that is another option that you have for a Submariner key. All right, now number 9. This is a high sale. This is the second video in a row that I have talked about this book. This was X-Men number 4 with a CGC 9.0 that sold for a huge record, $15,600. Now, like I said, I talked about this book a couple weeks ago because there was a low sale and a high sale in the same auction where a 3.0 I think sold for more than a 4.0. It was a really strange sale. But like I mentioned back then as well, I think this book does deserve to sell for more. I think it deserves these bigger sales, not just because it is has the speculation around Scarlet Witch. It's also just the second appearance of Magneto, awesome cover, early X-Men, has a bunch of first appearances in it. I think it is a great book if you can get it at a discount to those recent sales. Now, like I said, this was a big record. This $15,600 sale, I had estimated it at $11,000. This was 42% above that estimate. The prior record from October of 2020 was $6,600, so it beat that prior record by 136%. So it hasn't sold for a while, and so that's why basically we had that jump in prices last year, and this kind of goes along with that 136%, but regardless, a very strong sale for this book, and showing that in these higher grades, that's one of the things I've really been seeing, is that those high grade copies are having strong sales across a lot of different titles. Those are the ones that are maybe separating a little bit right now. Now, I have mentioned the alternative for this one as well. X-Men number 5 is just one issue later, second appearance of Scarlet Witch, third appearance of Magneto, but it's not nearly as cool of a cover, and so that is why it sells for quite a bit less. That same 9.0 grade in X-Men number 5 sold for $1,920 very recently. So it's a little less than that 10x multiple that I normally see for the second appearances, but it's within that ballpark. So it is a much more affordable option. It will likely move up in price if the other book, if 4 moves up in price as well. And so that's where you don't necessarily have to spend thousands of dollars on one of these books for one of these keys. You can buy one of the second appearances, or like with Submariner 1, you can get the first solo series, and that gives you access to that character. And so then you have a book for that character, and if the other books move up, it will likely move up as well. All right, now number 8, we're going to be sticking with X-Men. This was a low sale. This was X-Men number 3 with a CGC 6.5 that sold for just $1,200. Now, this is the first appearance of the Blob, and for an early X-Men first appearance and just an overall early X-Men book, I'm always surprised how cheap this one is. Now, he is not a super popular character or anything, so I see how that kind of hurts it, but still, it's X-Men number 3, it's a first appearance. Now, I had estimated the price of this book at $1,700. This was 29% below that estimate, and I think I may have even bid on this one, and because it felt like it was way too cheap, but I bought something else that's pretty big in this auction, so I had to be really cautious with my bids after that, which I'll maybe talk about a bit later. But the record for this book was $1,418 from May of 2021, but there had been some other big sales more recently, like a 7.0 that went for $2,000 in January. So I was expecting a bigger number for this book. I feel like it was a little bit disappointing. So I do think that this is one that it feels undervalued for how early it is and being that first appearance, that I think is a reasonable book to go after right now. Now, you do have an alternative to it, X-Men number 7, but it doesn't really sell for much of a discount. For example, a 7.0, which is a slightly nicer copy, in December sold for $985. So that's not that much of a discount. Personally, I would be going for that first appearance. If it's that close in price, it's much better to go for the first appearance of this character than the second. The second appearance seems like maybe it's either overpriced right now or the first appearance is underpriced. One of the two, but I would personally be going after X-Men number 3 if you want to get a book related to that character. All right, now number 7, this is a high sale. It's the first Golden Age book on this list today. This is Punch Comics number 9 with a raw 1.0 that sold for $2,160. Now, this is not a book that you see come up for sale very often. If you haven't seen this one before, it is a crazy cover, especially from 1944. It's pretty violent. You know, these little mini people attacking the artist or the guy that's working at that table. Violent cover, doesn't come up for sale very often. I mean, but this was a big sale for this book. I can't really claim a record since it's a raw book, but a graded 1.0 sold in 2016 for just $340. So that gives you an idea how much this book has gone up in just about 5 years. Now, I had estimated the price at $1,500 because there have been other sales in other grades, so this was still 44% above that estimate. And a 1.8 sold for $1,998 in 2019. So again, you can see this is about half that and selling for more in just a couple years. So you can see these pre-code horror books, these or horror-related type covers are really, they've been on a pretty big hot trend over the last few years. Now, this is another one I had been hoping to pick up. I've been trying to buy some of the Punch Comics books recently, but got a little too steep for me. Now, it's tough with alternatives though, because with pre-code horror books, you're buying it for that specific cover. And so it's hard to say, well, then just go buy this other cover. It's not necessarily the same. But there are some other great options within the Punch Comics run, including another book that I'll be talking about later in this video. All right, now number 6, this is a low sale. Got Submariner again. This was Fantastic Four number 4 with the CGC 1.8 restored that sold for just $1,200. Now, this is the first Silver Age appearance of Submariner, and again, another book I was very surprised to see go for this cheap. And I say cheap because this book has been extremely expensive, gotten very expensive over the last year. Now, I definitely bid on this one. I know I did, but this was also after the other book that I bought, so I had to be cautious and I stopped bidding. Now, it is restored, but it's just a small amount of glue on the spine. So that glue is likely what's keeping the cover attached. If you remove the glue, it's going to be a detached cover. But even with that, it's probably just going to drop to maybe a 1.5, might even stay a 1.8. And so given that 1.5s, even just this January, Universal copies have been selling for $1,700 to $2,100. This felt like a great buy by whoever got it, because I imagine that they'll take that book, they'll have the glue removed, and then they'll get it regraded and get either that, probably that 1.5, something like that. And then that book is worth around $2,000. And so they spend a little bit of money to get that glue removed, get it regraded, and then they're up pretty big on that book. So I had estimated the price of this at $1,800. This was 33% below that estimate. And like I mentioned earlier, it's surprising to me that these books are going at a discount right now, because if we get anything that's even more concrete, which we've already kind of gotten, I think that all the Submariner books are just going to start jumping, going to start going through the roof. So now I've already mentioned the alternatives for this book: Submariner 1, Iron Man and Submariner 1. So mentioned those earlier in the video. Those are the ones that, because this book you're generally going to be spending over $1,000. If you want something a little more affordable, go for those other options. All right, now number 5, and it's another repeat from the last video. This was Avengers #1. This was a high sale with a CGC 7.5 that sold for a record $25,200. Now, like I said, this is the second video in a row that I've had Avengers #1. Last time it was that 1.0 that sold for like $3,120, something like that. Huge sale for that 1.0. Now we've got this big record for a 7.5. This is the first appearance of the Avengers. Definitely a book that has been on a very strong uptrend recently. Now, I had estimated the price of this book, $17,000. This was 48% above that estimate. Prior record was a recent sale just in November of $17,400, and so that was in November of 2021. It beat that record by 45%, so legitimate huge sale for this book. And I've had some questions recently about, what kinds of books are hitting records, or any books actually hitting records, and this is one of them. I mean, Avengers #1 is definitely a book that across multiple grades has had records recently, beating out sales from last year, from that May timeframe, all of that. So big sales in this book. Now, for alternatives, I mentioned it in my last video, and it's still the same. Avengers #2, not as great of a cover, but a much more affordable book. You can get that same book in around the same grade for $1,500, $2,000, something like that, in that range. And so definitely a book that is much more affordable, again, in that about 10 times less price point. And if you see Avengers 1 continue to move up, and you see that Avengers #2 lag, where it's not moving up quite as much, that's the time to pick up those books, because they tend to self-correct, where if you have that first appearance going up, the second appearance will eventually trail behind it and go up as well. All right, so now we've got another low sale. This is number 4, Punch Comics #11. We're back in the Punch Comics run. This was also a raw book. This was a 3.0 that sold for just $600. Now, I definitely bid on this one as well, but I had to stop on this one too. Now, I have had some people ask occasionally about how I buy books, that kind of thing, and you've heard me mention a few times in this video that I had to stop bidding on a book. And so for me, and that's despite me thinking that that book was going at a great deal. But for me, I'm always buying with money that I have from selling comics. And so if I've spent that money, I know exactly how much I have to spend on any given day. And if I've spent that money, then I don't bid on anything else, or I only bid up to what I have left. And so it can be tough to pass on books, but then you never put yourself in a risky financial position. And so that's just my rules that I follow for when I'm buying books. It's I sell books, and I use that money to buy other books. And if I run out of that money, then I'm not buying books. Now, back to this comic. So this is another great Punch Comics cover. I have a copy of this one. I like this book. It's got an early skull cover. I mean, it's 1944. I had estimated the price at $1,100. This was 45% below that estimate. This is not a book that sells often. A 5.5 though recently sold in August of last year for $2,640, and so that's where I got my approximate estimate for this book. So I do think whoever bought this book got a total steal. I do really wish I could have gotten it, but congratulations to whoever got that book, because I think you got a great deal on that one. Now for alternatives, same comment I had for Punch Comics #9. It's tough when you're doing a comparison across different pre-code horror covers when the thing that somebody is really going after is that cover. But like you saw here, this was a great deal on an early golden age pre-code horror book. So you just keep your eyes open, and occasionally you will come across those deals. And like I said with this one, I think whoever got it just got it for a steal and got a great pickup. All right, now number 3, this is a high sale. This is a book you don't see very often. This was Detective Comics number 39 with a CBCS conserved 4.0 that sold for $5,040. Now again, I can't really say this is a record because it's a conserved book, but this was a big sale. This is the second appearance of Robin. He is also on this cover though. I had estimated the price of this book at $2,500. This was 102% above my estimate. Just a huge sale, especially when you look at a 4.5, a slightly higher grade universal copy from the Promise collection, sold last year for $4,320. And so that was a book I really wish I would have bid on and gone after that one, but you know, is what it is, can't go back in time. But this one, this conserved copy, the only conservation was tear seals. And so I wouldn't be surprised if this person is going to crack this book out, have those tear seals removed, have it resubmitted, and get that universal grade. That is definitely what I would be doing with that book. But regardless, this was a big sale. For comparison though, the reason you can see this book moving up is because that first appearance is just getting so expensive. It's just really out of reach for most people. A 4.0 of Detective Comics 38, that first appearance in universal grade, sold for $49,000 in 2020, and so it would definitely be selling for more now. So that gives you an idea what the value difference is. I mean, even just in June of last year, a coverless copy of Tech 38 sold for $6,600. So that is a extremely expensive book, and so people are taking advantage of that second appearance when it comes up for sale. Now, this is already the alternative for the first appearance. It's one of those books that it's tough again to give alternatives because it's that first or second appearance of a major character, and so it's really just one of those things you've got to be ready to spend a lot of money, and when they come up for sale, you know, you're probably going to get into a bit of a bidding war for that book. All right, now number 2. This was the most surprising low sale, and we're sticking with Batman. This was a CGC 9.2 of Batman number 423 that sold for just $216. Now this is way more modern. This is 1988, but this is that classic Todd McFarlane cover where it's kind of like Batman drawn like Spawn. And this book over the last year has just been going crazy, but it has been losing some of its shine a little more recently. But even with that, this was a surprisingly low sale. Now, I had estimated the price of this book at $400. This was 46% below my estimate. This was way below any other sale this year. There have been quite a few sales this year. This book sells all the time, way below any other sale. The record from May of 2021 was $445, but in 2022, we've even had sales at $440, generally more around the $400 mark though. So this sale of $216 was extremely low. A great deal. I think this person probably just got a great deal, a steal on this book, because on average, this book is selling in that $360 to $440 range. But for alternatives for this one, I mean, it is a little pricey. You can go for the other prints. There's a second print and a third print of this book. Second print is the cheapest. The third print is a little more rare, so it tends to go for a little more than the second print, but the first print is still the most expensive. So if you want to go for a slightly more affordable copy of this book, looks basically the same, go for that second or third print. All right, now for number 1, this is the most surprising high sale, and this was possibly the craziest sale that I have seen in a year. I mean, maybe the craziest sale I have seen ever, because this was Captain Marvel number 28 with a CGC 9.8 that sold for $22,800. This was one of those sales that when it happened, I immediately started messaging people. I was screenshotting it and sending it to people, and I was like, what is going on with this sale? This is insanity, like an insanity sale. Because this really isn't even a key. This is an early appearance of Thanos, an early cover appearance of Thanos, but that's about it. There's really nothing else to this book. Now, it is rare in a 9.8. There are only, I think, 4 in a 9.8, but still, it's like a non-key book. So just the fact that it's a 9.8, I mean, I know there are people that try to put together these like high census lists, and so maybe that's what this was, people fighting over this book, but for comparison, Iron Man 55, first appearance of Thanos. 9/8 sold in November for $9,000. That's just 3 months ago, and this sold for over double that. So this sale was, it was bananas. Just nuts. I had estimated the price of this book at $5,800. This was 293% above that estimate. I mean, it's not a book that sells very often in this grade. The last sale was $3,030 in 2018. At the same time, a 9.6 was going for about $500. A 9.6 sold in February this month for $975. So that's how I came up with my estimate of $5,800, around double for that book. And so this is a 9.8 selling for 22 times what the 9.6 sold for. So I think that's just insane. It's insanity. I mean, I get that, it's buy what you like, you can buy whatever you want, but you can buy some pretty cool books for $22,800. It's just, for me, it would not be Captain Marvel number 28. That was a crazy sale. And it's the fact that 2 people were bidding on it. That means there had to have been at least 2 people going back and forth for that book. Now, this is one that you don't need an alternative for. It's not an expensive book. Even in the high 8s or low 9s, it's like a $200 book. And so that really shows how extreme this sale was. That you could buy a 9.2 for like $200, and then a 9.8, 23,000, 22,800. So just a crazy, crazy sale in my opinion. But it shows how that single grade bump, I mean the 9.6 going for $975 and then a 9.8 going for $22,800 can have some extreme impacts on price. So I could definitely see people buying a bunch of 9.6s and cracking them and going for that 9.8, because when you've got that much potential on the value of a book, because that means there was somebody else out there willing to bid over $20,000. So if you've got that much potential on a book, I imagine we'll get some 9.6s cracked out where people are going to try to go for 9.8s. All right, so that was my top 10 surprising sales I saw last week. Hope you enjoyed this video, saw some fun books, just some crazy sales this last week. If you did, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. I've got more videos over here if you'd like to watch some of my other videos, and the subscription button right here. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, I would really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.